The Boston Tea Party story. Is it fiction? Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Today, welcome back, Sam, for our last Insights episode of 2023. Today in the news, Sam was recounting the story of the Boston Tea Party and casting some doubts over what we think we know, but also having a go at a crowd favourite, Alexander Hamilton, of more recently Broadway fame. So I think this is going to be a great way to wrap up the year. How are you going today, Sam?
Great, Chris. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So, very interesting article today. I love it when we do some of these historical ones that really look at what did happen versus what we think happened. So, you
Mhm.
wrote about the Boston Tea Party and what happened back on the 16th of December, 1773. So, you're calling into question the story a little bit there. What does this mean? Did it happen that way? What actually happened?
So it happened, but just not for tea. So we were taught in schools that it was all about attacks on tea. Well, that's kind of like saying that the attack on Pearl Harbor was all because rise of the cost of pearls, something like that. It's a bit diluted. So the story was that colonists disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians or Native Americans so they could blame it on them and get away with it. And then they attacked a British ship or um, an East India Company ship and destroyed all this tea in retaliation for essentially what was the Townshend Act, which had a few small taxes on various things, including tea. Now, firstly, they didn't disguise themselves. In fact, a lot of the colonists' supposed disguise was just something like a feather in their hair. So it was more like they were dressing up to rebel, kind of like a university kid painting their face to go to a football game. They're
Hmm.
not trying to convince people or disguise themselves as, Celtic warriors. They're just dressing up to go wild. And secondly, the thing was that Benjamin Franklin himself wrote that the colonies would gladly have borne the little tax on tea and other matters had it not been that England took away from the colonists their money, which created unemployment and dissatisfaction. So what actually happened was the colonists had their own currency and England found out about it and took it away. So that's the real cause of this rebellion. When you attack a British ship in the 1700s, what's on the ship? Well, tea. So
Okay. So a little bit of basis in fact there, but a lot of embellishment by the sound of it. So
yeah.
let's dig a little bit more into the actual real reason there, which was about the currency. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the currency was at the time and how that operated?
Well, the currency was called Colonial Scrip. So not script, but just scrip, SCRIP. And it was common in the olden days for companies, communities, different places to come up with their own scrip. It's just a form of payment. For a company, it could get some provisions at the company store. In the Americas, what that meant in different states did it differently. But instead of creating a debt-based currency, where they're essentially, borrowing at interest based on gold and silver from a central bank that's private, it was just notes of credit created by the government. And they tried to control the supply of it so that they didn't have the problem of inflation. So what this did was it created a huge amount of prosperity in the Americas, and it caught the eye of the English as well. So this currency was arguably the first fiat modern currency.
Right. So we've got roots right back there of this idea of having a fiat currency, but by the sounds of it, that was somewhat more successful than the fiat currencies that we've experienced over sort of more modern history where they've ended up blowing up. What happened here? Was it a similar situation in the end? How did that currency ultimately come to its demise?
Well, the one thing the British did was they would create counterfeit notes and try
Mm.
to, damage the value of the currency. Although Benjamin Franklin was really, really brilliant and he helped design currency as well. So he would add these little things that we add in our money today to help stop counterfeiters. some special threads and some powders and things that could be detected by people checking for counterfeits. But this currency came to an end ultimately because the English the English banned colonial scrip,
Hmm.
and they did that by passing the Currency Act. And you learn about the Tea Party and the tax on tea, but you won't learn about the Currency Act, which was an act passed by England, which just said you're not allowed to use that currency anymore. You have to come and trade it in for our currency. Now, when they went to go and trade in the currency, they were only given 50% of its value. So that led to a massive depression. Unemployed were filling the streets, and colonists were very, very angry. And it just carried on from there.
So it was a not necessarily a collapse of the currency itself. It was more brought about through an act, um, really an aggressive act of devaluing that currency made by the government, well, the English government at the time. Is that correct?
Yeah, the currency was doing too well.
Yeah, yeah.
So they
So
had to go
because it
after
did
it.
have that sort of foundation in somewhat stable foundation that we simply haven't created in modern fiat currencies. But it sounds like the US certainly learned a lot about central banking from those early days and sort of experimenting around that. Why did they forget some of those lessons particularly when you use this example of something that seemed to work quite well?
Well, it's a lot about not just misinformation, but a lot of disinformation.
Mm.
And even people at the time didn't have too much of an understanding of money, although they quickly learned and they added that actually into the US Constitution. But shortly after that, you had agents coming over and trying to change the public's opinion, get a central bank in. So a private central bank. Now, the first agent that was sent over to do this was named Alexander Hamilton. So this is a stuffy, bland, boring central bank agent who's sent over to crush any hope of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And now you know why today, because he was successful in getting a central bank in eventually, although that one was later scrapped. Now you know today why Hamilton is a superstar and the other founding fathers' statues are getting pulled down because Hamilton is the central bank agent. So uh, today you'll see him on TV probably rapping, maybe doing some dance moves, some hip hop dance choreography. He's very, very cool um, because he helped the powers that be.
So a massive psyop going on there, right? So we
Yep.
got Alexander Hamilton, you've painted him in quite the negative light there. We're just going to have to go rewatch the show and see what we think about that. But a fascinating story, and thank you for that today, Sam. It really does go to show that you really do need to understand a little bit more about what was going on. It's not just the headlines, and it's not just always the literal song and dance that you can pay attention to in this situation, is it?
No.
Uh, Thank you so much for everything throughout the year. This is our last episode today. So thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, everyone, for watching. We hope you have a fantastic Christmas and a great new year. We'll be back early in 2023 to continue watching all things markets and metals. But until then, good luck in the markets, everyone. We'll see you next year.